Hi there and welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Rosa Coelho, health coach, trainer, and teacher. I'm also founder of the Simply Strong programs and community. Here, we cut through the noise to simplify health, personal growth, and lifestyle, helping you to thrive with ease, confidence, and vitality. Listen in because you never know when you may hear something that changes everything. Hello, beautiful friend, and welcome to another episode. I don't know if you noticed, there was a slight rebrand happening. So I changed the intro. I had the same intro for this podcast for the last 4 years. So I was like, just time to shorten it and change things a little bit because life has changed too. We still call it the Rosa Coelho podcast because I just find that's easier. It's never going to change in the sense that my name is never going to change. And I remember when I first started this podcast, it used to be called Coffee Talk because I had this little thing I would do on Facebook when Facebook Live started. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to let a name hold me back. And then I knew I didn't want it to be that forever because I knew I wanted to do interviews. And when you're going to interview guests, I just thought Coffee Talk just doesn't describe anything. So I didn't let that hold me back. And I hope that there's kind of a lesson in there. If you're trying to think of something, just know you can always change later. And no one really even notices these changes except for you. I doubt that anyone listening, maybe one or two of you, maybe remember when it was called Coffee Talk. I then remember thinking, okay, I'm ready to do some interviews and I need to change the name and what do I do and what am I all about? And it was just it drove me crazy. And then I remember going through just iTunes and Spotify and looking to see what people had as their podcast names. And there's all these things out there. And I'm like, oh, nothing's really inspiring to me. And then I was like, oh, there's quite a few that just had their name. I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. But there is a tagline. And the tagline, which I just added, is living simply strong. And that's because that is my current phase of life. It's what I coach women to do. It's how I want to live. It doesn't mean that we're always living this strong life, but simplicity is what I believe so helps us in so many areas of life that we so easily complicate everything. And so often when we feel overwhelmed or feel anxious or any of the things, that when we can actually simplify things, gain clarity, then everything becomes simpler. And when things become simpler and more clear, we also become stronger in our decisions, stronger in our convictions, stronger in who we are. And also it has to do with physical strength too, because I'm all about training women and having women feel strong, because that changes everything about us. It's not just about the way we look, but also the way we carry ourselves, the confidence. I have seen women over and over and over and over again change on so many levels because they introduce strength training. And we're not talking about lifting those crazy heavy weights, which is cool. Don't get me wrong. But I'm just saying it doesn't take a lot in order to feel those changes and those differences. So if you're haven't strength trained before and you're new to it, let's get rid of those 5 and 10 pound dumbbells and start lifting some heavy stuff, because it really is a game changer. Anyway, let's go on to today's episode. Today I'm talking about the 90-10 rule. And the 90-10 rule, the idea is that if you are after results, if you right now are okay, I want to be super fit, I want to be strong, I want to be healthy, I want all the things, then I'm all about not being about perfection at all. Perfection is just, I think people use perfection as a way to quit. It's a way to procrastinate. Perfection doesn't exist. It's not a thing. But this is why I like the 90-10 rule. Now, you've probably heard about the 80-20 rule. That's very common. That's what a lot of people say. Oh, 80-20, 80-20. I personally have never been about 80-20. And not when you're going after results. I think if you're maintaining wherever you're at, that could possibly work, right? Just depending on where you're at. And what this means is 80% of the time you are on track with what you're supposed to be doing, all your lifestyle habits, your food, your workouts, all the things. And then 20%, you're just kind of doing whatever you want, or you're just a lot more relaxed. So I have not seen that work in the sense of when someone is going after a particular goal and result. In that case, we do have to be a little bit more strict. And like I said, I'm not about perfection. We do not need to be perfect. And in fact, I coach the ladies all the time. Do not let perfection steal away your goals because you just decide it's all or none. But the 90-10 rule, I find, is doable. It gives you that little wiggle room of like, I don't have to be perfect, but yet I'm still holding myself to a high level of accountability because there is that balance. Like, I am not one of those trainers that's like, oh my gosh, you didn't do this and you didn't do this and whatever. But I am about data. I'm about like, okay, well, let's look at your macros for the week. Let's look at how many times you went way over or even way under. Let's look at how many steps you got in for the week. Like, based on this data, that's why these results are here or not here. And I love that. It just makes it black and white because you're like, okay, I'm not getting the results I want because clearly this data is right in my face and I'm just haven't done it. So next week, this is what I'm going to focus on. Or heck, I am like, this is amazing. Like I'm rocking it. And it's because you've got the data and that really works. And so I even like looked up these numbers like of how much like the 80-20 rule is and all the things. So I retract. I was just looking for my little sheet. Let's be honest, you can't see me. So I look at the course of a year, 52 weeks. So if you are applying the 80-20 rule, that means 10 weeks of the year, you're just off doing whatever, no accountability at all towards your goals. That's 2.5 months, like 2.5 months out of the year where you're like just doing whatever, but you have this goal. That's a lot of time off and to still expect like really great results. Now, 10% is about 5.5 weeks. And I think that's cool. Like, that's pretty much how I do it. Like, I mostly take the month of August and then in December off of everything. But again, when you have these habits, you just kind of have them. But I don't worry. Like, I don't track. My workouts are not often strength training workouts in August. I literally just like take that month to chill. I might do a lot of walking depending where I'm at, but I'm not on any sort of a program. And same thing, I do that over the holidays at Christmas for about like a week to 10 days as well. And that just, I have found in between that, then I'm just super consistent. And so only, again, if I have a particular goal, which I do as I'm approaching 50. So like there isn't a huge amount of leeway, but that's a lot. Like, even if you break it down into a week, for example, like let's look at just nutrition. Okay. You're like, I want to have like, I want to have this meal that I know is going to put me way over like my calories or my macros or whatever. Well, in a week, you can still do that for 2 meals. That's 10%. Now, 20% would be 4 meals. Like, now, if you're taking 4 meals, say 4 dinners within a week, and a week is not very long, and you're just like doing whatever during that time and going way over your macros and way over your calories, then chances are that's not going to be a great week. And that's the 20%. 20% is still a lot of time off. So as much as I'm not about perfection, I am about high accountability. I do think it's very important to give yourself that 10% where you just chill out. And you know what? Some weeks it'll be 15%. Some weeks it's going to be 12. Some weeks it's going to be 5, right? There's no science to what I'm saying in that sense. What I'm trying to get across is still having that high level of accountability and knowing it's this idea of the compound effect, like the steps that you take, these little things that you do daily, do over time, make a big difference one way or the other. And it's interesting. I actually just posted about that book. It's called The Compound Effect by Darren Hardy. I read that book probably more than 15 years ago, and it was such a game changer for me. If you haven't read it, read it. It's a short read and it's so worth it. Like, that changed so much for me in my own health. It changed things for me in business and just in so much that concept of the compound effect is wild, because you start to go, oh yeah, it does matter. When you're thinking, oh, I don't have to do this workout, like missing one workout won't make a difference. Yeah, one won't make a difference, but 2 or 3 or missing 4, like that starts to make a difference. And so how on track do you need to be for the compound effect to actually take place? Because that's what you want. Because when the compound effect takes place, it's magic. And you also get into the zone. Once you're in the zone, it also becomes, once you've done these habits long enough, it becomes your identity. So also the 80-20 rule, you won't find it's a thing anyway, because it's just not really how you live all the time. Like I will, like I said, take the month of August off and a week and a half to 2 weeks, maybe at Christmas. But I don't feel like doing that very often throughout any other time of year, just because like, it's just what I do. Those habits have become my habits. It's like brushing your teeth. And so it's always fun to go off the rails a little bit, like for a little bit of time. Totally. And I think that's super healthy. And actually, whenever I do that, like take the holidays now, and I think a lot of people can resonate with this feeling, like, because this happens mostly at Christmas, where you're like, you eat so much stuff and maybe drink a little more than you should, and you're like not sleeping as well. And it's just like, it's that time of year, that feeling like when you're done, when you're like, the new year has hit, and let go of the New Year's resolutions and all that kind of stuff. It's just that feeling of like, I am done. I'm done seeing food everywhere all the time. I'm done at picking at food all the time. Like I'm just done. I want to feel good. And that's what happens. Like when it becomes such a part of who you are, is like, you don't ever want that feeling of feeling good to disappear, or at least not disappear for very long. And so it's worth it. Like it's worth applying like this 90-10 rule. But what I'm trying to say is that it won't always feel like it's hard. Like that becomes, again, just part of your identity. So anyways, I just wanted to share that because I think this 80-20 rule gets thrown out a lot. And it's just, for me, I feel like it's too much of a leeway if you're after a goal. So we do have to have that higher level of accountability. So I don't know. I like the 90-10. And like I said, it's not like scientific, but we know, I'm sure you know exactly what I mean by that. And so if you're like, again, if you're trying and you're working, not trying, but if you're working towards a goal, give yourself the grace to let go a little bit. That 10% also gives you a lot of room, and you can still achieve amazing goals. You do not need to be perfect. In fact, like I said, perfection is not a thing. Don't use that, oh, I didn't have a perfect day, to then the next day punish yourself for it or to give up completely. Like you just get back to your regular habits. And it's similar to the episode that I did over the holidays where I said that I lost 4 pounds. I didn't do anything special. It just went back to my normal habits. I didn't try to cut major calories. I didn't try to make room for it. Like you just go back to your good, healthy habits. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say on that. I hope you liked the new short intro. I would love it if you're on iTunes, please leave a review. That would mean the world. And if you've enjoyed this episode or any episode, please tag me on Instagram and let people know that you're listening in, because sharing it really makes a difference. I love it when you send me private messages to tell me how much you've loved the episodes, but really it means so much too when you can share it publicly, because that really helps. Okay, have a beautiful one. Thank you so much for listening in today. I know time is precious, and I'm grateful you shared yours with me. It would mean the world to me if you felt an impact, a moment of inspiration, or learned something new. If you would share it with those you care about and leave me a review on iTunes. I'd love to know what spoke to you or what you'd like to hear more of. Your sharing and leaving a review would help so much on this journey to making an impact on as many people as possible. It's worth it. I know from experience, there are moments when something we hear has the possibility of changing everything.